The slippers arrived at 4:47 p.m. on Christmas Day, not at 4:45, which would have been forgettable, not at 5 o'clock, which would have been round and clean, but 4:47, a time so specific, so deliberately mundane, that I knew I'd remember it forever. The courier wore a Santa hat, crooked and cheap, the white trim yellowing at the edges like old teeth. He thrust the package at me with the practiced indifference of someone who delivered disappointment all day long. Paul coughed, his breath fogged in the December air, mingling with mine in a brief, intimate cloud before dissolving into nothing. If you feel like this story might reach you somehow, follow the channel. That way, you help me bring more stories like this, and we grow with every life we learn from. That's me, I said, though part of me wanted to lie, wanted to be someone else. Someone whose son might actually show up for Christmas dinner instead of sending whatever this was. The package was soft, too soft for anything meaningful, too light for anything that mattered. I signed his electronic pad with a stylus that stuck halfway through my name, turning cough into something that looked like cough with a violent slash. The courier didn't care. He was already walking backward down my porch steps, eyes on his next delivery. Santa hat bobbing like a metronome, keeping time to someone else's holiday. The house behind me hummed with preparation. The oven timer would go off in 12 minutes. The Yorkshire puddings were rising or falling. I could never tell which until it was too late. The roast beef, Linda's recipe, sat in its pan, blood pooling in careful rivulets around potatoes that I'd quartered with the same knife. We'd received as a wedding gift 43 years ago. 43 years. 6 months. The math of grief is always uneven. I didn't open the package immediately. Instead, I stood in the doorway, watching the street. The Hendersons across the way had 17 cars in their driveway. 17. I counted them twice to be sure. Their windows glowed with the warm chaos of too many people in too small a space. Shadows moving past curtains in a dance I used to know. Linda would have been at the window by now, providing commentary. "That's their daughter's new boyfriend," she'd say, though she'd never met him. "You can tell by how he stands apart. See? Right there by the blue Toyota. He doesn't know where to put his hands." She always noticed hands. Said they told you everything about a person. What they wanted, what they feared, what they'd do when no one was watching. I looked down at my own hands, still holding the package. Liver spots had appeared sometime in the last year. Brown constellations mapping age across skin that used to be smooth. Linda never got liver spots. Never got the chance. The package made a soft rustling sound when I finally turned back inside, closing the door on the Hendersons and their 17 cars and their boyfriend who didn't know where to put his hands. The dining room table stretched before me like an accusation. 4 place settings, 4 chairs, 4 wine glasses catching the light from the chandelier. Linda had insisted we buy even though it cost 2 mortgage payments. "We'll have it forever," she'd said. Forever. Another word that means less than you think it will. I set the package on the counter, next to the note that had arrived with it. Mandy's handwriting, all loops and careful spaces. "Paul, thought you could use these. Merry Christmas. David's mother needed us this year. You understand. Love. M&D. You understand." Present tense. Declarative. Not a question, but an assignment of comprehension I hadn't agreed to. The timer buzzed. 12 minutes exactly. I'd pulled the Yorkshire puddings from the oven fallen, of course, collapsed into themselves like tiny wishes that didn't quite make it. Linda would have laughed. Would have said they tasted the same either way. Would have been right. I opened the package slowly, though I already knew. Could feel it through the paper. Slippers. Brown. Men's size 10. The kind with memory foam that remembers nothing worth remembering. Slippers. My son, my only son. The boy I taught to ride a bike in this very driveway. Who broke his arm falling from the maple tree that still guards our backyard. Who stood at his mother's funeral with his hand on my shoulder, like he was holding me to the earth, sent me slippers. Through his wife. Through a courier. On Christmas Day, the laugh that escaped me wasn't mine. It belonged to someone else. Someone who found this cosmic joke hilarious. Because it was, wasn't it? The perfect metaphor delivered by a man in a failing Santa hat. Slippers to shuffle through whatever remained. Slippers to wear in this empty house with its four-place settings and its fallen Yorkshire puddings and its chandelier that would, indeed, last forever. I put them on. Of course I did. They fit perfectly, which somehow made it worse. The roast came out at exactly the right temperature. 135 degrees at the center, just pink enough to be tender, just done enough to be safe. I'd used the meat thermometer David gave me 3 Christmases ago, back when he still came, back when Mandy would bring her green bean casserole that no one liked but everyone ate because that's what you do. I really think that. I carved the roast with unnecessary precision, each slice exactly the same thickness. Plated it with the fallen Yorkshire puddings, the roasted potatoes, the honey-glazed carrots that Linda always cut on the bias because they look fancier that way. Paul, and Christmas should be fancy. 4 plates, 4 settings, 4 chairs. I sat in mine and looked at the others. Linda's to my right, where she could reach the kitchen easily. David's across from me, where I could watch him eat, a habit from when he was young and would try to feed vegetables to the dog. Mandy's to my left, where she'd sit with her phone tucked half under her plate, checking it between bites when she thought I wasn't looking. But I was always looking. That's what fathers do. We look, we notice, we remember. The first bite was perfect, tender, well-seasoned, exactly as Linda had taught me. The secret is the coffee, she'd said, rubbing grounds into the raw meat like she was blessing it, just a little. They'll never guess, but they'll know something special. Special. I ate slowly, methodically, the way you do when you're trying to make something last. The house settled around me, beams contracting in the cold, making small sounds that almost felt like company. Outside, snow began to fall, fat flakes that caught the light from the Henderson's 17-car celebration. Between the second and third bite, I heard it. Linda's voice, clear as church bells. Not a memory, not quite. Something else. Something that lived in the space between the fallen Yorkshire pudding and the perfect roast. You're using the wrong fork, Paul. I looked down. She was right. I was using the salad fork for the meat. After 43 years, I was still getting it wrong. Linda would have gotten a kick out of these, I said to the empty chair, holding up a foot to show off the slippers. Memory foam, like I need help remembering. The chandelier light caught the brown fabric, making it look almost golden, almost deliberate, almost like it mattered. I finished the meal in silence, then cleared the plates. All 4. Washed them carefully, dried them with the towel Linda had embroidered with small reindeer. Their red noses faded from decades of December use. Put everything away exactly where it belonged, because that's what you do. You maintain order. You keep things ready. You act as if what? As if they might walk through that door. As if the phone might ring with apologies. As if caring for empty spaces could somehow fill them. The Christmas tree lights blinked in the living room. That chaotic pattern Linda loved, and I'd never understood. Random is more natural, she'd said. Life doesn't happen in patterns, Paul. But she was wrong about that. Life happens in exactly patterns. Birth, growth, decline, death. Spring, summer, fall, winter. Love, marriage, children, abandonment. Slippers. I found myself at the computer at 7:23 p.m. Another specific time that would stick like a splinter. Facebook opened to David's page, though I'd promised myself I wouldn't look. His profile photo. Him and Mandy at some beach, both tanned and smiling at something beyond the camera's reach. Last post, 3 hours ago. A photo of a dining room table, not mine. Crowded with people I didn't recognize. Raising glasses of wine, not ours. Mandy's mother at the head, arms spread wide like she was claiming territory. David in the corner, smiling that same distant smile he'd worn at the funeral. The smile that said he was present, but not there. Participating, but not involved. The caption, blessed to be with family this Christmas. Mom's outdone herself again. Hashtag, grateful hashtag, family first, hashtag Christmas blessings. Family first. The hashtag hit like a slap with a velvet glove. Soft enough to deny intention, hard enough to leave a mark. I scrolled through the comments. Hearts and smiling faces, and looks amazing. And so jealous, and family is everything. A whole chorus of agreement that this what Christmas looked like. Not an old man in new slippers. Not 4-place settings becoming one. Not fallen Yorkshire puddings that tasted the same either way. I closed the laptop harder than necessary. The sound echoed through the empty house, sharp and final. That's when I saw them. The birds. Linda's birds, really. Cardinals, 3 of them, perched on the feeder she'd insisted on hanging where we could see it from the kitchen window. They need us most in winter, she'd said. When everything else is gone, they need to know someone's still watching, still caring, still caring. I found the bag of birdseed in the garage, exactly where Linda had left it. Walked out in my new slippers, ridiculous, but I didn't go back for shoes. The snow was deeper now, soaking through the memory foam that would remember this. The cold, the wet, the slow walk to the feeder. The cardinals didn't fly away. They watched me with black eyes that seemed to hold the entire winter. I filled the feeder slowly, seeds spilling over the edges, wasteful in a way Linda never was. "Merry Christmas," I told them. They tilted their heads, considering. One chirped, a sound like a question. "Yes," I answered. "She's gone. But I'm still here, still watching, still caring." They stayed while I stood there, snow gathering on my shoulders like the world's coldest blessing. 3 red birds against white snow. A Christmas card no one would send. Perfect in its imperfection. Beautiful in its smallness. When I finally went back inside, my feet were numb, the slippers ruined. I didn't care. I put them by the heating vent to dry, though they'd never be the same. Nothing ever was after it got soaked through. The TV offered its usual Christmas comfort. It's a Wonderful Life on 3 channels. A Christmas Story on 2. But I found what I was looking for on channel 847, buried in the cable guide like a secret. Wise Guy. Our show. Linda's and mine. We'd watched every episode when it first aired. Sunday nights at 10 p.m. Too late for young David, but perfect for us. Vinny Terranova going undercover, losing himself in the lie until the lie became more real than the truth. He's going to get himself killed, Linda would say every episode, genuinely worried about a fictional character's fictional danger. He always survives, I'd remind her. Surviving isn't living, Paul. She was right about that too. I settled into my chair, not the recliner. That was hers, still was, always would be, and let Ken Wall's voice wash over me. Season 2, the garment trade arc. We'd love this one, the complexity of it. The way loyalty bent but didn't break. The way love complicated everything it touched. Somewhere between the 2nd and 3rd commercial break, I fell asleep. Dreamed of Linda feeding birds that looked like cardinals, that sang like phones ringing. Dreamed of David as a boy, wearing slippers too big for his feet, shuffling through snow toward a house I didn't recognize. Dreamed of Mandy writing notes in perfect loops that spelled out words in a language I'd never learned. I woke at 11:47 p.m., 30 minutes until Christmas ended. The TV had switched to an infomercial for knives that could cut through anything: cans, shoes, presumably hearts if necessary. My phone had 3 texts. 2 from neighbors. "Merry Christmas, Paul. Hope you're well." The exclamation points trying too hard. Compassion dressed up as cheer. The 3rd from David. "Thanks for understanding, Dad. Maybe New Year's? Maybe. The death of certainty always begins with maybe. Maybe will come. Maybe next time. Maybe when things calm down. Maybe when the kids are older, except there were no kids. Would never be kids. That ship had sailed in sunken waters we didn't discuss." I didn't respond. What was there to say? That understanding and accepting were different things. That I wore the slippers but felt the insult? That 43 years of marriage had taught me to see the space between what people said and what they meant. And that space was where the truth lived. Instead, I did what Linda would have done. I went to the kitchen and packed up the leftover roast, the vegetables, even the fallen Yorkshire puddings. Arranged them in containers with the same care I'd used to cook them. Labeled each one with masking tape and black Sharpie. Roast beef minus 12/25. Roasted potatoes minus 12/25. Yorkshire pudding minus 12/25. As if the date mattered. As if someone might ask, when was this from? As if I might forget. The refrigerator accepted them all, humming its reliable tune. I stood there with the door open longer than necessary. Cold air spilling out like guilt. looking at all that food that would go bad before I could eat it. But throwing it away felt like admitting something I wasn't ready to admit. The clock turned to midnight while I stood there. Christmas became December 26th without fanfare. Just numbers changing on a digital display. Green becoming green. Everything the same but different. I closed the refrigerator door. The house exhaled around me, settling into its bones for another night. The tree lights still blinked their chaotic pattern. The chandelier still caught light and had no business catching at this hour. The birds slept somewhere, trusting the feeder would still be full in the morning. I walked through each room one last time, turning off lights. The dining room with its 4 chairs pushed back under the table, waiting. The living room with Linda's chair and her knitting basket. The yarn still twisted around needles that would never finish whatever they'd started. The kitchen with its new slippers by the heating vent, slowly remembering the shape of feet that had nowhere important to go. In the bedroom, Linda's pillow still held the impression of her head. 6 months, and I hadn't plumped it. Couldn't. That small dent was geography now, a map of absence I navigated every night. I sat on my side of the bed. Would it always be my side? And picked up the photo from the knitstand. Last Christmas. Linda in the red sweater I'd bought her, the one she said was too fancy but wore anyway. David and Mandy on either side of us. Everyone looking at the camera, except Linda, who was looking at me, smiling at something I'd whispered right before the timer went off. I couldn't remember what I'd said. Something stupid probably. Something that didn't matter except it made her laugh. And making Linda laugh was my favorite sound in the world. Was. Past tense. The grammar of grief. I put the photo back, face down. Not because I didn't want to see it, but because I couldn't stop seeing it. Every closed eye brought it back, burned into retinal memory like staring too long at the sun. The slippers were dry by morning. The memory foam had indeed remembered the snow, the cold, the walk to feed birds that weren't mine but were my responsibility now. They felt different when I put them on. Broken in by breaking. December 26th arrived gray and subdued, a hangover of a day that didn't know what to do with itself. The Henderson's 17 cars had become 3. The snow had stopped but not melted, leaving everything covered in white that was no longer pristine, just cold. I made coffee in the machine Linda had bought despite my protest that our old one worked fine. Fine isn't good enough, Paul, she'd said. Not for mornings. Mornings should be better than fine. The coffee was perfect. Rich, hot. Exactly what a morning needed. I drank it looking out the kitchen window at the bird feeder. The cardinals were back, or maybe different ones. Did it matter? Red was red. Need was need. Seed was seed. My phone rang at 8:17 a.m. David. Hey, Dad. David. A pause. The kind that costs more than words. Did you get the package? I did. Good. Mandy thought. Well, she noticed your old ones were worn out at the funeral. At the funeral, because that's when they last saw me. That's when they last looked at my feet, my hands, my face long enough to notice anything needed replacing. They fit, I said. True and insufficient. Great. That's great. Another pause. This one shaped like an apology that wouldn't come. So, about New Year's. What about it? We're thinking of coming by. Maybe. Mandy has this thing with her mom, but if we can get away, maybe. The architecture of disappointment, build one conditional word at a time. Don't, I said. What? Don't come? The word surprised me, coming from somewhere below conscious thought. The place where truth lives before we dress it up for company. Not if it's a maybe. Not if it's an if. Not if you're squeezing me in between other obligations like a dentist appointment you've been putting off. Dad, the slippers are fine, David. They're exactly what I expected. I hung up. Another first. In 43 years of marriage and 28 years of fatherhood, I'd never hung up on family. But Linda was gone, and the rules had changed. Or maybe there had never been rules. Just habits we mistook for laws. The phone rang again immediately. I let it go to voicemail. Then again, voicemail. The third time, a text. Dad, please, let's talk about this. Let's. As if this were a collaboration. As if we were in this together. I deleted it, put the phone face down on the counter, and went to shower. The hot water ran out after 10 minutes. The water heater needed replacing. Linda had mentioned it months before she died, but there'd been treatments to pay for, hope to purchase in increments that insurance didn't quite cover. I finished in cold water, shocking but clarifying. Sometimes comfort was overrated. When I came back to the kitchen, towel around my shoulders, hair still dripping, there were 3 more texts and 2 voicemails. I deleted them all without reading, without listening. There was freedom in not knowing, in choosing ignorance over information that would only confirm what I already knew. The doorbell rang at 11 a.m., not 10:59 or 11:01, but exactly 11 o'clock, like an appointment. Through the peephole, Mandy, alone, standing on my porch in a coat that cost more than our mortgage payment, shifting from foot to foot like a child needing the bathroom. I considered not answering, considered pretending absence. But the car in the driveway betrayed me, and besides, Linda would have answered. Linda always answered, even when she knew it would hurt. "Paul," Mandy said when I opened the door. Not Dad, which she'd never called me, not Mr. Koff, which would have been formal but respectful. Just Paul, like we were colleagues, like this was business. Mandy. She waited for an invitation that didn't come. The December air pushed past her, reaching for the warmth of the house, and I let it. Let the heat leak out. Let the cold creep in. Let the boundary between inside and outside blur until she shivered. "Can I come in?" "Why?" The question threw her. She'd prepared for anger, maybe, or hurt, certainly, but not this flat interrogation, this demand for reasons. To talk. "David's upset. David's not here." "No, he thought it would be better if I came." "Better for whom?" She pulled her coat tighter, a gesture that made her look younger than her 34 years. "Can we not do this on the porch?" "We're not doing anything, Mandy. You're standing on my porch. I'm standing in my house. There's no we in this geometry." Something shifted in her face. A recognition, maybe, that this wasn't going according to whatever script she'd rehearsed in the car. "The slippers were my idea," she said. "David wanted to send a gift card, and you thought slippers were better? More personal?" I thought ... double quote. She stopped, recalculating. "I noticed at the funeral. You mentioned that. David mentioned that. You noticed my feet at my wife's funeral. What else did you notice? The way my hand shook? The way I couldn't remember people's names I'd known for 30 years? The way I stood at the grave after everyone left, after you and David left, and tried to figure out how to walk back to a car that would take me to a house that wasn't home anymore? Paul, Mr. Koff." "What? Mr. Koff. Or Dad, if you can manage it. But not Paul. Linda's dead, but I'm still David's father." That used to mean something. She flinched. Good. Let something penetrate that coat, but carefully maintained distance. "Mr. Koff," she said, the words stiff in her mouth. "We thought you'd want to be alone for your first Christmas without her. You thought. You assumed. You decided. But you never asked. Would you have said you wanted us to come?" The question hung between us like a bridge neither wanted to cross. "I cooked a roast," I said finally. "Linda's recipe. Yorkshire puddings. The whole production. 4 place settings. 4 chairs. 4 wine glasses that caught the light from a chandelier that cost 2 mortgage payments. Well, you didn't know, because you didn't ask. Because it was easier to send slippers through a courier than to pick up the phone and say, 'Dad, what do you need? Dad, how are you? Dad, would you like us to come?' Because maybe I would have said no. Stay with your mother. Enjoy your 17-car Christmas. But maybe I would have said yes, please. Dear God, please come, because the silence is so loud I can't hear myself think anymore. Tears now. Hers, not mine. I'd run out of tears somewhere around month 4 when the oncologist said, comfortable instead of curable. David's in the car, she said. I looked past her. There he was, my son, sitting in the driver's seat of a BMW that could have fed a small country, hands at 10 and 2 on a steering wheel that wasn't moving. Watching us through the windshield like this was a movie he could pause if it got too intense. Of course he is. He wanted to come to the door, but you handled the hard conversations. You managed the difficult relatives. You send the slippers and write the notes and make the excuses. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed. That same strange laugh from yesterday. Fair is Linda living the C70. Fair is my son having the courage to face his father without his wife running interference. Fair is not eating Christmas dinner alone in slippers that will remember the shape of my feet long after anyone remembers the shape of my life. She turned to look at David, some silent communication passing between them. He shook his head, a small movement but clear. No. Whatever she was asking. No. We should go, she said. Yes. Maybe after New Year's? No. No, maybe. No after. No squeezing me in between your mother's needs and your Pilates class and whatever else fills your days. When you're ready to show up, show up. When David's ready to walk to this door himself, he's welcome, but no more maybes. Linda's dead and maybe died with. I started to close the door, then stopped. The slippers, I said. They're very comfortable. Tell David his mother would have hated them. She looked confused, but I didn't explain. Couldn't explain how Linda would have seen through the gift to the gesture, through the gesture to the fear, through the fear to the terrible truth that David was his father's son, better with distance than closeness, better with absence than presence, better with silence than words that might crack us open. I closed the door, stood there listening to her footsteps retreat, the car door open and close, the engine start with German precision. Through the peephole, I watched them sit there for a full minute. Not moving, not talking, just existing in that BMW bubble while my heat bill climbed and my coffee went cold. Finally, they drove away. No honk goodbye, no wave, just taillights disappearing into December gray. The house exhaled again. Or maybe that was me. I reheated my coffee in the microwave, something Linda never let me do. It ruins the molecular structure, she'd insist, though neither of us knew what that meant. It tasted fine. Different, but fine. Most things were different, but fine if you adjusted your expectations. The day stretched ahead, empty as a clean plate. I could watch more Wise Guy, could eat leftover roast, could sit in this house with its 4 chairs and its chandelier and its blinking lights and wait for time to pass. Instead, I put on my coat, not the good one, that was for occasions that mattered, and my ruined slippers, and walked outside. The Hendersons were deflating an enormous Santa that had occupied their front yard. It folded in on itself with a wheeze red fabric collapsing into wrinkles that looked like disappointed skin. "Paul," Mrs. Henderson called out, "how was your Christmas?" "Quiet," I said. Truth dressed as understatement. Ours was chaos. Absolute chaos. 17 people. Can you imagine? I counted the cars. She laughed, thinking I was joking. Next year, we're going to them. Let someone else host for once. Next year. The assumption of it. The certainty that there would be another December, another gathering, another chance to choose chaos over quiet. Good plan, I said. Mr. Henderson emerged from their garage, carrying a box labeled XMAS in red marker. "Paul, good to see you out and about." Out and about. Like I was recovering from something, which I supposed I was, or wasn't. Recovery implied returning to a previous state, and that state included Linda, so recovery was impossible. I was just continuing. "Need help with that?" I offered, pointing at the deflated Santa. No, we've got it. But hey, if you're free tomorrow, we're having people over for leftovers. Nothing fancy. You should come. Should. Another assignment. Another obligation dressed as invitation. "I appreciate it," I said, "but I've got plans." "Oh, good. With David?" "No, just plans." They exchanged that look married people perfect over decades. Whole conversations in a glance. Concern mixed with relief. Pity cut with gratitude that it wasn't them. Yet, I walked on before they could respond, my slippers making wet sounds on the salted sidewalk. No destination in mind, just movement. Just the need to be somewhere other than where I was. The neighborhood was in transition. Christmas decorations half removed, half abandoned. Lights left on in daylight. Wreaths crooked on doors. That particular exhaustion that follows forced cheer. I found myself at the small park 3 blocks from our house. David had learned to ride his bike here, Linda running beside him, her hand on the seat, until suddenly it wasn't, and he was flying solo, terrified and thrilled in equal measure. "You let go," he'd accused. "That's the point," Linda had said. Holding on was always temporary. A bench sat under an oak tree that had been old when we moved here and would be old when I was gone. I sat, my ruined slippers soaking up more moisture from the snow-dusted wood. A woman walked by with a dog, some expensive breed that looked like it required professional grooming and had opinions about things. The dog stopped to sniff my slippers, then looked at me with judgment. "Sorry about that," the woman said. "He's particular about footwear. Smart dog." She laughed and moved on, pulled by the dog toward whatever smell mattered more than my inadequate footwear. The sun broke through clouds for a moment. That weak December sun that promises nothing but delivers light anyway. It caught the ice on the tree branches, turning them into brief prisms. Beautiful and temporary. Everything beautiful was temporary. Maybe that was the point. Maybe permanence was overrated. My phone buzzed. Another text from David. I pulled it out, ready to delete it too, but the preview caught me. Mom would be disappointed in me. Would be. Conditional past tense. The grammar of hypothetical shame. I opened it fully. Mom would be disappointed in me. I'm disappointed in me. I'm sitting in my driveway afraid to come home because Mandy's crying, and I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to fix us. I didn't know how to watch Mom die, and I don't know how to watch you live without her. I'm a coward, Dad. The slippers were Mandy's idea, but sending them by courier was mine. I couldn't face you. Can't face you. Every time I see you, I see her dying, and I can't. I just can't. Can't. The word that ended things. Can't try. Can't come. Can't face. Can't. I typed back. The bird feeder needs filling every 2 days in winter. The birds don't care if you can or can't. They just need to eat. 3 dots appeared immediately, showing he was typing. They disappeared. Appeared again. Disappeared. The modern dance of wanting to say something, but not knowing what. Finally, I don't understand. Come by tomorrow. Alone. I'll show you. Okay. Okay. Not maybe. Not if. Just okay. Sometimes that was enough. Sometimes that was everything. I stood up from the bench, my back protesting with sounds Linda would have worried about. The walk home was shorter than the walk there, the way return trips always are. The Hendersons had finished with their Santa. No evidence left except a patch of brown grass where it had stood. Back inside, I made a sandwich from the leftover roast. Ate it standing at the kitchen window, watching the cardinals at the feeder. They came and went on their own schedule, trusting the seed would be there. Faith or habit, did it matter? The afternoon passed in small tasks. Laundry, dishes, vacuuming, though the house wasn't dirty. Just the maintenance of living, the small responsibilities that kept a life from collapsing into entropy. At 4:47 p.m., exactly 24 hours after the slippers arrived, I sat down at the computer and opened Facebook again. David's post from yesterday had 847 likes. 847 people who thought that was what family looked like. I clicked Create Post. Typed, First Christmas without Linda. Cooked her roast recipe. Yorkshire puddings fell, but they tasted the same. David sent slippers. They fit perfectly. I stared at it for a long moment. True but incomplete. Honest but not honest enough. I deleted it. Typed instead, the birds still come to the feeder. That has to count for something. Posted it. No hashtags. No photos. Just that one line floating in digital space. Within minutes, responses. Hearts and sad faces and thinking of you. And Linda loved those birds. And stay strong. The vocabulary of distant sympathy. Well-meaning, but weightless. Then, from David, a single red heart. Public acknowledgement. The beginning of something or the end of something. I couldn't tell. The computer dinged with a private message. Mrs. Chun from 3 houses down. Paul, I saw your post. I have too much food from Christmas. Can I bring you a plate? No visiting, just dropping off. Before I could respond, another. My daughter made extra cookies. Linda's recipe, actually. The ones with the candied ginger. Then another. Walking by tomorrow with the grandkids. We'll fill your bird feeder if that's okay. Small offerings. Tiny gestures. Not enough to fill the Linda-shaped hole in my life, but enough to acknowledge it existed. I responded to each. Thank you. Simple. Sufficient. Evening came early, the way it does in December. I turned on the tree lights, still blinking their chaotic pattern. and sat in my chair with a glass of the wine we'd saved for special occasions. Every day above ground is special, Linda had said near the end, when wine and everything else tasted like metal from the chemo. I raised the glass to her empty chair. The Yorkshire puddings fell. Silence. The slippers are ridiculous. Silence. David's coming tomorrow. A cardinal landed on the windowsill outside, tilted its head at me through the glass. Not Linda. I wasn't that far gone. Just a bird. But a bird that needed feeding, and I was the one who knew where the seed was kept. Okay. I told it. Okay. It flew away, but it would be back. They always came back when there was something worth coming back for. I finished the wine, turned off the lights, and headed to bed. Tomorrow, David would come, or he wouldn't. Either way, the birds would need feeding. Either way, the sun would rise on December 27th. Either way, I would put on my ruined slippers and continue. In the bedroom, I looked at Linda's pillow, still holding the impression of her head. On impulse, I plumped it. The dent disappeared, replaced by fullness that looked wrong but felt like progress. Small progress, but progress nonetheless. I lay down on my side of the bed, and it would always be my side. That was okay, and closed my eyes. Somewhere in the darkness, I heard Linda's voice. Not a memory, but not a memory either. The secret is the coffee, Paul. Just a little. They'll never guess, but they'll know something special. You were the special, Linda. The coffee was just coffee. Sleep came slowly, then all at once, like understanding. I dreamed of birds. Not cardinals, but thousands of small, unnamed birds, each carrying a single seed to build something I couldn't quite see. In the dream, David was there, young again, learning to ride his bike, and Linda was running beside him, her hand on the seat. When do I let go? Dream David asked. You don't, Dream Linda said. You just learn to hold on differently. I woke at 3 a.m., that brutal hour when the body betrays and the mind catastrophizes. But instead of lying there counting losses, I got up, put on the ruined slippers, padded to the kitchen. The bird feeder was barely visible in the darkness, but I knew it was there, knew it was full, knew the birds would find it when the sun rose. I made coffee in Linda's fancy machine, strong, black, with just a touch of grounds rubbed into my palm, the smell of it like a prayer or a promise or both. Okay, I said to the empty kitchen. Okay. And for the first time since Linda died, I meant it. The coffee was perfect, rich, complex, with something special you couldn't quite identify but knew was there. I drank it slowly, watching the darkness fade to gray, waiting for the birds to come. They always came when there was something worth coming for. And maybe no, not maybe, definitely, that had to count for something. David arrived at 10:17 a.m. the next morning, not 10 o'clock, which would have been punctual, not 10:30, which would have been casual, but 10:17, the kind of specific time that suggested he'd been sitting in his car, working up courage. I watched him through the kitchen window as he sat there, engine running, hands drumming on the steering wheel to some song I couldn't hear. He looked older than his 28 years. When had that happened? When had my son developed lines around his eyes, gray threading through his temples like silver tinsel left over from Christmas? Finally, he turned off the engine, sat for another moment, then walked to the door, each step deliberate, like he was measuring the distance between who he was and who he needed to be. I opened before he could knock. Dad, David. We stood there, the December air between us, neither moving to hug nor handshake, just standing, just being in the same space for the first time since the funeral. You're wearing them, he said, looking at the slippers. They're comfortable. They look terrible. They're functional. He almost smiled. Almost. Mom would have hated them. Yes. Now he did smile. Small but real. She had opinions about footwear. She had opinions about everything. Yeah, silence. But not the uncomfortable kind. The kind that acknowledged what couldn't be said yet. You mentioned the bird feeder, he said finally. Come on. I led him through the house, noting how his eyes tracked the changes. Or rather, the lack of changes. Everything exactly as Linda had left it. Preservation as a form of denial. You kept your chair the same. I keep everything the same. That's not ... that can't be healthy. According to whom? He didn't answer. We reached the kitchen, and I pointed through the window at the feeder. She fed them every day, sometimes twice in winter. Said they depended on her, and now they depend on you. No, they depend on the seed being there. Doesn't matter who fills it. David watched as a cardinal landed, pecked at the seeds, flew away. Simple, transactional, necessary. Is this a metaphor? Everything's a metaphor if you squint hard enough, but sometimes birds are just birds. Seed is just seed. Need is just need. He walked to the window, pressed his forehead against the cold glass. I couldn't come, Dad. I couldn't sit at that table and pretend she was just in the kitchen, about to walk in with dessert. I couldn't do the performance of normal when nothing was normal. So you sent slippers. Mandy sent slippers. I sent nothing, which is worse. Honesty. Finally. Why are you here now? He turned from the window. Because you said okay. Not maybe. Not we'll see. Just okay. And because ... He stopped, gathered himself. Because Mom would be disappointed. Not would have been. Would be. Present tense. She's gone, but the disappointment would be current. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. I pulled out the bag of birdseed, handed it to him. Fill it. Now? They're hungry now. He looked at the bag like it might contain answers. Then nodded, walked outside without a coat. Just his expensive sweater that would smell like sunflower seeds for weeks. I watched him struggle with the fear's mechanism, spill seed on the snow, curse quietly when a cardinal dive-bombed his head. Linda would have laughed, would have called out instructions, would have made it an event. I just watched, let him figure it out. When he came back in, his hands were red with cold seed stuck to his sweater, a small scratch on his cheek from the feeder's edge. Harder than it looks, he said. Most things are. Yeah, I poured him coffee. He took it black, like me, though I knew he preferred cream and sugar. Some genetics are behavioral. I need to tell you something, he said. Okay, Mandy and I are separating. The coffee mug paused halfway to my lips. When? 2 months ago. Maybe 3. It's been ... gradual. Before or after Linda died. Before. During. After. Time doesn't work linearly any. I set down my mug. And Christmas at her mother's? Was me sleeping in their guest room while everyone pretended not to notice. 17 cars in that driveway, and everyone knew but no one said anything. The slippers were her parting gift, through me, to you. Something practical, she said. Your father likes practical. Your mother would have seen it coming. Yeah, she mentioned it, actually, near the end. This was news. What did she say? David smiled, sad and knowing. She said Mandy holds on to things the way people hold on to buses. Tight enough not to fall off, loose enough to let go at the next stop. That sounded like Linda, poetic and brutal in equal measure. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were losing Mom. Because I was losing Mom. Because adding another loss seemed ... cruel. And now loss is just the weather. Constant. Varying only in intensity. We stood there, 2 men holding coffee mugs like shields, not knowing how to navigate this new geography of shared grief. The leftovers, I said final, from Christmas. There's enough for an army. You cooked the whole meal. Have it for 4 people. Hope. He looked at me then. Really looked. Maybe for the first time since Linda's diagnosis. You hope we come. I set the table. 4 places. 4 chairs. The good china. Jesus, Dad. Language. Mom's dead. I think she'd give me a pass. He was right. Linda had opinions about profanity, but she had bigger opinions about honesty. You want some roast? It's good. Her recipe. With the coffee grounds? You knew? She told me. Last week she was conscious. Told me all her secrets. The coffee and the roast. The vinegar and the pie crust. The way she sometimes sat in her car in the driveway for 10 minutes before coming in, just to have a moment of quiet. She did that? Every Tuesday, after grocery shopping. We heated the leftovers in silence, moving around each other in the kitchen with practiced ease. Muscle memory from decades of family dinners. Our bodies knowing where to stand, how to reach, when to move. The food was better reheated, fuller somehow, like the flavors had time to think about what they wanted to be. This is good, David said through a mouthful of Yorkshire pudding. They fell. Still good. That's what your mother would have said. No. She would have said they were perfect because imperfect things have character. True. We ate without talking, the silence comfortable now. Outside, the birds came and went, the feeder swaying slightly in the wind. I could come by, David said finally. Sundays. Fill the feeder. It needs filling more than Sundays. Wednesdays too, then. Okay. Just okay? No conditions? No guilt? The birds don't care about guilt. They care about seed. He laughed, short but genuine. You're different. Dead wives will do that. No, I mean, you're more like her now. Direct. Clear. She rubbed off. 43 years will do that. 43 years and 6 months. You count the months after? I count everything. Days, hours, minutes since the last time she said my name. David put down his fork. How many? 15,723 minutes. Give or take. That single quotes S. Obsessive? Probably. But counting gives shape to absence. Makes it measurable. Manageable. Does it help? No. But not counting doesn't help either. So I might as well have the data. He smiled again, this time reaching his eyes. She would have found that funny. She would have found it sad but refused to show it. Yeah, we finished eating. Did the dishes together, him washing, me drying. The same arrangement from when he was 12 and needed a step stool to reach the sink. I should go, he said finally, but didn't move. Okay, I mean it. I'll come Sunday. I'll be here. And Wednesday. The birds will appreciate it. He walked to the door, stopped. Dad? Yeah? The slippers really are awful. The worst. But you're keeping them. They fit. That's not a reason. It's reason enough. He nodded, understanding something beneath the words. Sunday, then. Sunday. He left, and I watched his BMW navigate the street, careful around patches of ice. Responsible. Cautious. His mother's son, after all. The house settled into afternoon quiet. I sat in my chair, not Linda's, never Linda's, and picked up my phone. Scrolled through the responses to yesterday's post about the birds. 1,247 reactions now. Comments from people I hadn't heard from in years. Strange how grief made you visible in ways happiness never did. I clicked Create Post again. Typed Day 2 after Christmas. The birds came back. So did David. Both needed feeding. Paused. Added. Linda would have known what to do with that metaphor. Posted. Within seconds, hearts appearing like digital snow. But I wasn't watching for them. I was watching the actual birds. The real snow. The world that continued outside the screen. The doorbell rang. Mrs. Chun with a covered dish. Dumplings, she said. Linda's favorite kind. She told you her favorite? No, but I watched her at potlucks. She always went back for seconds of these. Observation as a form of love. Linda would have appreciated that. Thank you. Paul? Yes? The birds. I've been watching them at your feeder. There are more now than when Linda fed them. Same amount of seed. Maybe they sense something. Safety. Continuity. Or maybe it's just winter and they're hungry. She smiled. Maybe both. Usually is. She left, and I put the dumplings in the refrigerator next to the labeled containers of Christmas dinner. Building a collection of care, one covered dish at a time. The afternoon gave way to evening. I turned on the tree lights, still chaotic, still perfect in their imperfection. Sat with a glass of wine in the remote, scrolling through channels. Wise Guy was on again. Different episode. Vinny getting deeper into a lie that was becoming his truth. I understood that now. How pretending could become practice. How practice could become real. Halfway through, my phone buzzed. Text from David. Mandy wants to know if she should apologize. I typed back. For the slippers or the marriage? Both. The slippers were fine. The marriage was yours. That's not an answer. It's all the answer I have. 3 dots. Then, fair enough. David? Yeah? Bring bagel Sunday. Your mother liked the everything ones. She hated everything bagels. Said they couldn't commit to a flavor. I know, but I love them. So why ... Because for 43 years, I ate plain. Time to try everything. That's the worst pun I've ever heard. Your mother would have laughed. She would have groaned. Same thing with her. Yeah, same thing. Sunday then. With bagels. Everything bagels. Everything. The conversation ended, but something continued. A thread between before and after. A bridge built of bad puns and birdseed. I finished the wine, turned off the TV, made my rounds, checked locks, adjusted the thermostat, filled a water glass for the knitstand. In the bedroom, Linda's pillow held its new shape, plump, full, different, but still there. I sat on the bed, picked up the photo from the knitstand, turned it face up this time. Linda's smile, caught mid-laugh at whatever I'd whispered. David trying not to smile. Mandy already half turned away. The whole story there, if you knew how to read it. Everything bagels, I told Linda's picture. After all this time, silence, but the comfortable kind. The kind that knew words were just one way of talking. I lay down, still wearing the ruined slippers. They dried into new shapes, toes pointed up like questions. Tomorrow I'd wear them again, and the next day, until they fell apart completely. But not tonight. Tonight, they were just comfortable. Tonight, I will be watching my favorite series. The one that reminds me most of Linda. Tonight is just me and her. And on to the wise guy. Thank you for staying with me and listening this far. Did these minutes mean something to you? Then please, follow the channel. Every click from you is a push that helps me keep bringing stories that truly stay with us.